here in Harambe Twin Day, which means let's go. Jumbo friends, my name is Tessa and I'll be your safari guide today to the Harambe Wildlife Reserve. Now if you guys look right above your head up there, there is an animal spotting guide that will help you to identify some of the animals we might see out there on the reserve today. Now as we are moving along the reserve here, I ask that you please remain seated at all times, keeping all hands, arms, feet, and legs also inside the vehicle. And please make sure to keep your face coverings on for the whole safari. Alright, now looks like we have our clearance to begin. So we're going to get started in the Little Aturi Forest first. Now the animals in the forest have really amazing camouflage. They're also kind of shy, so they are a little bit harder to spot typically. So we definitely need to keep our eyes peeled around here. Now coming up on the left side here at the top of the hill, there are these orange rusty colored antelope laying down. They're called bongos. Bongos are known as the ghosts of the forest because they're very rarely seen. So I'm concerned about seeing a few ghosts. Now you might have noticed their horns are very thick. They also kind of slant backwards towards their head. It helps them to move very quickly through the rough brush of the forest without getting caught on anything. To the right here, these tan antelope are called greater kudu. They're one of the tallest antelopes in the world. They can stand up to 55 inches tall at their shoulder and weigh up to 750 pounds. So they can get pretty big. So they're following us here. Now these greater kudu are all females, and I can tell because only the males in the greater kudu family will have the really long and spiraled horns, which I do believe is shown on your animal spotting guide above your head down in the corners. Now also to the right at the top of the hill, you might notice that really large white and black bird. It's called a saddle-billed stork. They get their name from their yellow saddle shape that sits on the top of their bill, and they're very tall. When they stand all the way up, they can stand up to 5 feet. Alright, now if you look very closely down here to the left, there's actually a black rhino. He's laying right next to these rocks here. Looks like a big orange rock, but I promise you that is a black rhino. Looks like he's sleeping. So black rhinos can weigh up to 3,000 pounds. They can also charge up to 35 miles per hour, which is really fast for that large of an animal if you think about it. Now that rhino looks very dirty on his skin. I'm going to guess and say that is on purpose because rhinos do have very sensitive skin, so they tend to roll all around in mud pits and mud wallows to cool off in. Also, that mud acts as a natural sunscreen, so it also protects their skin. You can see that saddle-billed stork again to the right here. It looks like he made his way over here. Now you can tell male by female, the saddle-billed stork, just by looking at their eye color. Females have bright yellow eyes and males have dark brown. Alright, we're off to a really good start here so far, a really up-close sight. We're now going to be venturing to the second ecosystem on the reserve. It's known as the Safi River. So animals in the Safi River can be found submerged inside the water or just next to the water, keeping their skin cool from the sun and the heat. So we definitely need to keep our eyes peeled around here as well. Now over here on the left side there are some pink-backed pelicans, these white birds, and also look in the water, there's a bloat of hippos. A bloat is a group of hippos. Now the Nile hippopotamus can weigh up to 5,500 pounds. They're very large animals. Typically, during the daytime, hippos will be seen just like these ones are, with their bodies in the water, keep it cool. They're also usually asleep during the day because they are nocturnal animals. That means they are most active at night. Usually they'll be on land grazing for miles at a time. Now the pink-backed pelicans get their names from turning a pinker color on their backs during mating season. Their wingspan is about 7 to 9 feet in length, and to put that into perspective for you, that is about the size of the canopy of this truck right above our heads. Very long wingspan. Now it is the skin on their backs that will turn that pinker color during mating season, not the feathers, so you'll only ever really see the pink back whenever those long wings are actually spread. Now moving on to a congregation of Nile crocodiles over here on the left side. These are the largest crocodiles in Africa. They can grow up to 16 to 20 feet in length and weigh an average of 500 pounds. So their diet is mainly made of fish, but they're also known to eat bigger animals like wildebeest and zebra. So they don't need to eat at regular intervals like humans do. They can actually go a few months without eating anything at all. But to do that, they have to eat a lot of food all at once beforehand. And with that being said, they can eat about half of their body weight in a single feeding. So if you do the math, that's about 250 pounds in just one meal, which I think is really impressive. Now we're about to be overlooking the largest area of the reserve. It's known as the Savannah. So I do consider the Savannah a fan favorite because it's home to famous animals like elephants, giraffes, zebras, flamingos, and also some of those bigger cats as well, like cheetahs, and hopefully, if we're extra lucky, some lions. So all of those great beautiful animals that we all know and love, and so many more. Now over here on the right side, this really big, thick, funny looking tree is called a baobab tree. It's also known as the upside down tree. So if you notice, the branches kind of look like roots. It looks like the tree is upside down. Now they're a really great source of water for animals in the savannah during the dry season because they can hold up to 10,000 gallons of water in those trunks. And they'll go about 9 months sleepless out of the year to preserve all of that water. They're also known as the tree of life for that reason as well. We'll keep our eyes peeled for a few other baobab trees out here on the savannah. Let's go see what we can spot. Animals in the middle of the savannah right now. The tallest land mammals in the world, in fact, are giraffes. The good thing about giraffes is that they usually hang out in a group together. Their group is called a tower. You can probably guess why they're called that. They are super tall animals and they will tower over you. So we'll see how many members of the tower we can find. Now these giraffes are specifically Maasai giraffes, and I can tell by the rough, kind of irregular pattern on each of their coats. As opposed to the reticulated giraffe, they have more of a rounder and sort of a smoother coat pattern. Reticulated giraffes are typically a little bit larger in size as well. Now the majority of the giraffes that I can see so far are doing one thing in common, which is eating. That's what they usually do all day long. They only need about 30 minutes of sleep every day. So that's about 20 hours out of every day eating. Now they do have really long tongues that help them with all that eating. It's about 1.5 feet in length. It also has this purplish color to it, so it helps them from getting sunburnt while they're eating in the sun all day long. So it really does come in handy. There are a few younger ones in this tower as well. You can tell they're the shortest ones. As adults, giraffes can stand up to 18 to 20 feet tall. Babies are born on average about 6 feet, so they're very tall right off the bat. Small tree, there are those yellow, black, and white colored fruit animals. They're called African wild dogs. They're also known as painted dogs for the painted look on their fur. Now they are among the very best hunters with about an 80% success rate. So basically they'll chase their prey until their prey falls over from exhaustion. Also there are some Hartman's mountain zebras to the right here as well. Mountain zebras have this extra flap of skin at the front of their neck. It's called a dewlap. It helps to regulate their body temperature. They're the only kind of zebra that has that feature. Also to the left here, there's a lot going on. This tan antelope pretty close up here is a Patterson's eland. They're one of the tallest antelopes in the world. An adult male can stand up to 6 feet tall at their shoulder. Also in the back, those dark brown antelope are sable antelopes. They're very territorial animals. In a fight or flight situation, they will fight almost every single time. A few other zebras out here too. A group of zebras is called a dazzle, which is my favorite fact. Now, just like no two human fingerprints are the same, no two zebra stripes are the same. They are all unique. Babies are always able to tell which one is their mother though, since they imprint on them. passing by these funny looking orange mounds here too. These are all termite mounds. So they're made of a few things: saliva, dirt, and dung. Quite the mixture for sure. Bigger animals like giraffes will use them as scratching posts. Smaller animals like antelope will climb on top of them and use them as looking out posts to look out for any danger that might be in the area nearby. A lot of the younger ones are in the middle here of the giraffes. Now, a giraffe's gestation period is about 15 months, and they do give birth standing up. A giraffe calf will usually be up and walking within the first hour or two of their life as well, which is pretty incredible, being that their mothers do give birth standing up. So if you think about it, the first thing that a giraffe calf will experience, unwillingly, is a pretty big drop to the ground. Nice little welcome to the world for sure. Look at this big guy coming up on the right side here. That is actually another Patterson's eland. So that one is a male. And I said that they can stand up to 6 feet tall at their shoulder. And just to give you a perspective of that, we're about 6 feet off of the ground of the truck right now. So if he was standing right next to us, we'd be able to tell how tall he really is. They can also weigh up to 2,000 pounds. About 50% of their population is found on protected land in Africa. Now also to the right, there is a herd of white-bearded wildebeest on the hillside. They're very migratory animals. They can migrate over 1,000 miles in a single year. In fact, they're so migratory, a baby wildebeest will be up and running within the first 15 minutes of their life, so they won't get left behind by their herd. So not just up and walking, up and running. It's pretty crazy. And another name for a wildebeest is a gnu, if you've ever heard that word before. It's spelled G-N-U. They get it from the low grunting sound that they make that sounds like the word gnu. Now we're off to a really great start in the savannah so far. We're now entering the next part of the savannah known as elephant country. So we'll keep that in mind to be looking out for the largest land mammals in the world. It'll be hard to miss them for that reason. Well, it does look like it is our lucky day. Down here to the right by the water is a beautiful African elephant. So they really are the largest land mammals in the world. They can weigh up to 13,000 pounds. It's pretty crazy. So a typical elephant herd is made up of mostly adult females and their children. So usually pretty decently sized groups, up to about 40 elephants. Male elephants will usually be found, like this one is, by himself. But sometimes they will form these bachelor herds of 1 or 2 other males whenever they are mature enough to leave the female group that they grew up in. So we'll keep that in mind as we continue forward here. Hopefully we'll get to see a few more elephants up ahead. And if we do, we'll try to figure out which group they are in based on the number of elephants that we might be able to find. So elephants are increasingly harder and harder to spot out in the wild within the last few decades due to habitat loss, which is becoming increasingly dangerous for humans and elephants to be living in such close proximities together in Africa, because they kind of have to battle for and share their resources. But there is good news. So newfound research shows that elephants are afraid of the buzzing sound that bees make. So why does that matter? So farmers in Kenya are starting to use bees as a safer way of keeping elephants off of their crops. So basically how that works is they're placing the bees kind of in their own fences along the outside of the crops. So when the elephants start to walk towards them, they'll hear the bees buzzing and they will get scared. So they'll just turn around and go the other way. Also, elephants have really amazing memory, so they'll always remember not to go back to that farming area, and they have a way of communicating that with the rest of the herd as well, so that they remember for years to come. So ultimately, the crops will be safe, the elephants are safe, and also the bees are safe. So now humans, elephants, and bees can start living together in peace and harmony. Now look over here to the left, you can see there is actually a few other elephants by the rocks here. There's one right in the middle, there's actually a younger one kind of blending in with the rocks, pretty small. So since we can see a younger one there, I'm going to guess and say that this is just the start of a female herd. It does look like there's a few others all the way in the back there behind those rocks too. So yeah, definitely gonna assume this is a female herd. Now female herds are a little more social than the bachelor herds, only because they do have the youngest ones. So typically, during the daytime, younger elephants will be seen socializing with their cousins and their aunts. At nighttime though, they'll always be back with their mothers. So it's kind of like a human curfew almost, which I think is really sweet. Over here on the left side are greater flamingos. They are the lightest shade of pink in the flamingo species and also the largest. So they can stand up to 3 to 5 feet tall and weigh a whopping 9 pounds. Now if you notice, there are a few grayer flamingos on the island there. Those are actually younger flamingos. They're actually less than a year old. So they are born that gray color naturally, but they will grow pinker over time from the brine shrimp that's in their diet. That brine shrimp has carotene, which causes that pink coloration. They usually start to get pink at least 2 years old as well. And a group of flamingos is called a flamboyance. Now we're heading on into the east side of the savanna next, otherwise known as the pride lands. So we'll keep that in mind, be looking out and also listening up for any of those big cats that we mentioned earlier out this way. And also maybe some other big animals too. And I say that because that really big orange mud pit to the left is a pretty good sign that there might be some more rhinos out here somewhere. Because rhinos have that very sensitive skin. We talked about how they like to roll around in mud to cool off. And that mud pit looks really messy. So we'll keep that in mind. Speaking of which, over here to the right, laying down up top on the hillside, there are a few white rhinos. So white rhinos can weigh up to 5,000 pounds. There's about a 2,000 pound difference between them and the first rhino we saw at the beginning of our safari. They're also a little more social. That's why they're hanging out kind of in a group there. Their group is called a crash of rhinos. Might get to see them again on the other side of this hill here, depending on where they're laying. Now my favorite fact about rhinos is that they can gallop very gracefully, like a horse would. They can get all 4 of their feet off of the ground at one time. So if you think about it, that's about 5,000 pounds worth of white rhino off of the ground at the same time. It's pretty impressive. Just around the corner here is this really big rock formation called the Kobe Rocks, which is a really great place for all different kinds of animals to utilize to their advantage to overlook the savanna, to maybe look out for any potential predators, maybe potential prey. In that case, it's a really great place for lions to claim their territory. So just like in the movie The Lion King with Pride Rock, it's very similar. Speaking of which, actually look down here to the left at the other side of the trees, by the bush at the very edge. There is a male lion sleeping right there by the bush. It's facing our way. Now, lions are inactive for about 20 hours out of every single day, which means they're only awake for about 3 years of their whole life. So they really just sleep their whole lives away. The reason they sleep all day long though is not because they're lazy. It's because they're trying to save their energy for when they are most active, which is nighttime. That is when they do most of their hunting. Now the female lionesses are usually the hunters at night. The males are usually the protectors. They'll stay back to protect their cubs and their territory. Coming up on the right side here, there are 3 ostriches hanging out with some bon tabac. Ostriches are the largest birds in the world. They cannot fly, but they can run really fast, up to 40 miles per hour. They'll actually use their wings to steer themselves as they run. So that is what their wings are used for, since they cannot fly. Oh, there's a female lioness over here too, on the left. So we were talking about how they are usually the hunters at night. Females will work in teams to hunt down their prey. They're really not the fastest big cat and really not the most successful hunter. So So they definitely need all the help that they can get. And the males are only the ones that have the lion's mane. So the older the males get, the longer their manes will become, and the darker the color of the mane will become too. Now, if any of those lions were to start roaring right now, a lot of the guests here in the park that weren't even on the safari could probably hear them because their roars are so powerful, they can be heard up to 5 miles away. It's pretty impressive. Now, if you take a look to the left, all the way in the middle back there by the rocks, there's actually a warthog laying down. You might be able to see his tusks sticking up, kind of looks like an orange rock in the middle, behind the tree in the middle. So Pumbaa from the Lion King is actually Swahili for foolish one. But don't let that fool you. They're very intelligent animals. Warthogs are the largest burrowing land mammals. They go in their burrows backwards with their tusks facing outward so that they can protect themselves when they are most vulnerable. You can see the bontebok again on the right side, those dark brown, kind of purplish tinted antelope. They're actually relatives of the wildebeest and also known as patchwork buck for the contrast colors on their coats. They do have a pretty cool story behind them that I always like to share. So at one point in time, there were less than 20 bontebok left in the wild due to habitat loss. But there were some farmers in Africa that brought them in on their land, kind of fenced them in and protected them, and brought their numbers back up. So now today, there are a few thousand bonteboks left in the wild just because of those farmers, which is really awesome. And you may be wondering, why didn't the bonteboks just escape or jump over the fences? So what kept them there with all of those farmers? Well, bonteboks have very little athletic ability, so that alcohol really did work to their advantage in that situation. So it's kind of funny, but it's also really awesome how it all worked out in their favor that way. Alrighty, friends, so it looks like we have reached the end of our safari journey since the gates up ahead have opened for us to head back towards the village now. So I hope you guys are able to see some of your favorite animals out there today and some really cool and up-close sights of them. Now, no two safaris are ever the same, and the animals definitely make sure of that. So I encourage you all to come back and ride again sometime. You might even get the chance to see a different animal than you saw this time around, which would be really awesome. Now, if you would like to help out any of the animals we saw on the reserve today, or maybe some of the animals you might have seen walking throughout the park, or in your backyard, or in the ocean, or just the environment in general, you guys can just do the small things like reduce, reuse, and recycle. So things like plastic, cardboard, paper, old batteries, old cell phones. Every little bit truly does go a very, very long way, my friends, and it does make a difference in those animals' lives and in our environment. Now, if you would like to see any more animals here in Africa, there is the Gorilla Falls Exploration Trail. So over at Gorilla Falls, you can see western lowland gorillas. There's an underwater hippo pool, all different kinds of reptiles, naked mole rats, meerkats, birds, and fish, and it's all at your own pace. So you can sit there and admire the animals for as long as you so wish. And if we have any wilderness explorers here on board with us today, you've been aboard the Simba 1. Alrighty, friends, here in Harambe, we don't like to say goodbye. Instead, we say a word called Kwaherini. Kwaherini means to go well. So go well, my friends, go wild. And I hope you have a great rest of your day here in Disney's Animal Kingdom, or wherever your adventures continue.
Oh,
Holding.
I just need